I wasn't gonna film this yet, but I'm so like disgusted. So I decided that I might as well carry on. Just his general disregard for women and his lack of respect for them. I'm sorry that I'm brushing my hair. I was gonna brush my hair first and then do this video, but I couldn't wait, so I'm doing it now. So before I continue with talking about like what happened in October, I would just like to mention that I briefly went over it before, but he refers to women as it. He has no regard for them. Like even when my mum drew him, was calling her it. He wasn't very like grateful because she's drawn him 3 times. The first time I had mentioned that drawing, he actually posted that drawing. He didn't credit my mum or anything, but he did post it, and he just said like put the caption as my username, I think it was, but didn't actually tag me, if that makes sense. Like just said it as like a phrase. And the second time he refused to even acknowledge the drawing for some reason. I don't know why. He didn't even like, even though I was speaking to him actively and I kept saying like, have you seen it? He just kind of was like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And the third one, he said that he loved it, which is odd for him. He doesn't usually say things like that. And that the third one was drawn in August, and he never posted it, but he said that he really liked it. So there's that. And he like, even then he was calling my mother an it, like, oh yeah, it drew that for me, sort of thing. Like he's just completely no regard for women. And every time he mentioned women, he'd always like comment on, like he was telling me how one of his friends is really frumpy, and I was just like, it's that's a bit rude. Why are you saying that about her, sort of thing. He just had no women are it, guys. Oh, they've got their own pronouns, they he and stuff, but women, no. And that bothers me in that he just had such a disregard for women. One time, this did happen. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I feel like because I'm on this topic, I should mention it now. He once like said to me, this is not actually that long ago. It was I think last month, maybe the month before. He said to me like, "I find it my relationship with you. I find it difficult because basically he told me that he's sexually attracted to me, but he also wants to respect me." And I was just like, "You think they aren't compatible? Because the whole point is." They go together. Like he didn't seem to understand that. Well, either he's ignorant to it, or he genuinely, in his fucked up mind, he can't understand it. But it made me so mad. Like I was so like I wasn't angry at the time, but I was just sort of shocked that he said that to me. And I feel like that of a lot of the things, it's like I just can't tell if he's that warped that he really doesn't know, or he does know and he chooses not to. I'm not sure which way around it is, but either way, I was just so disgusted by that, and I'm not literally angry, but I'm so like I guess disappointed because I really did want to believe he was better than that, and he was just so negative towards one of the things I forgot to mention when I was talking about like the quotes of things he said to me. I think I actually have of my old phone is around or somewhere. I think I actually have the quotes written down on this phone. I'll check. Okay, I've got the screenshot now. I may have cut that out. What just happened? I was trying to find a screenshot. So of the things that he said to me, I did quote some of them, but I'd like to quote them directly because these are the exact word for word quotes that he said to me during that conversation I had with him while he was going from where his friend lived to New York. Okay, so this is not in the right order, but I just wrote them down because I saved them as a snap, because obviously then if I deleted them off my phone I could always go back on Snapchat and get them, which is what I just did. Um, so he said, "You're such a cool chick, you're amazing, and I'm kinda a cool guy, and I think we could really work, if you wanted to. I don't." Then he was like, if you like, he sort of went all shy, and then he said, "I don't even know what I'm saying." And this was the one I was referring to earlier, but I couldn't in the previous video, but I couldn't remember the full quote, but this is it. He said, "You've really grown up into your body and you're beautiful. I love seeing you." Which I was very taken aback by because that was very the first like positive adjective that was sincere. Because before he had called me pretty, but I felt like that one was more sincere. I felt like at the time. And then the other one was when he said, "You have great tits and a tight teenage vagina. I have a big D. I enjoy your company as much as I can for someone I'm not next to right now. I love talking to you when you talk to me." I mean, that sounds a bit nonsensical, but that's kind of how he talked. Another thing I'd like to mention, because I just got it, is I mentioned in my last video how he liked to talk weirdly about my name, like he would forget it, and even though he knew it the entire time. So I wrote down, this is on October, I wrote down a list of names that he had for me. Careza, Carissa, Cerveza, Clarissa, Carissa, I meant, Syringa. And I said, he said it right at first, but since he went back to LA back in July, never right after then, even though I tell him. The reason why he started saying Syringa is because I told him he always misses the N out, so now he's added one. Which comes across like a joke, but it did used to bother me that it seemed like he purposely forgot my name, which is a horrible thing to do. So I thought I did write this one down, but he did used to go on about my skin quite a bit. I don't think I wrote that down at the time because I was only writing down the stuff that I thought was very explicit. Obviously, that's not that explicit or implies being in a relationship that I didn't write down, but he did used to go on about that too. Okay, I'm back. That was only like a second, but my phone was complaining about storage, and this video is only going to be allowed to be 23 minutes, but on top of that, 6 minutes I just filmed. It'll probably be about half an hour again because for some reason, even though I've got like literally this is the only video on my phone currently because I deleted all the others. It's still saying that I have no storage, which is weird because I checked and apparently I do. So October was a proper ride. That was a really weird month with him because I remember. Well, actually, this was the end of September, I believe. Maybe in October. No, it was October. I was trying to think because I know it was the 22nd. And actually, I guess there are two different times he did very similar things, and they're both on the 22nd of each month. So I was staying at a friend's house, and while I was there, my dog Nico, who you've seen, I told Dylan that I had this dog and I was getting this dog. He was born on the 22nd of September, and this was something did happen on that day, but I can't remember specifically. I do have the screenshot somewhere. But on the actually, no wait, I do remember what happened on the 22nd of September, and this is like important for a future reference. So I don't think I'm going to talk about it yet. I'll talk about it when it comes towards the end of the whole thing because it's only like there's no point me bringing it up now because it's like it relates more to that rather than now, even though it is something that happened in September. I was looking at the screenshots yesterday, so I remember the date. But I remember I was staying at a friend's house, and it was the 30th of September or the 1st of October, and my dog was born on the 22nd of September, and he was a little tiny puppy, and I wanted him. I was allowed to have him, and I got him. But I didn't get him then, obviously. I mean, I got to see him, and he had his name like straight away. I decided his name was Nico, and he was like a few days old, so he's always been called Nico since he was born. And I was at my friend's house, and I mean, this is like kind of like rude, but I really wanted to speak to Dylan, like always, and I called him, and he was being so sweet, like crazy. Like he answered, and then he was going on about it's really weird looking back because I don't even know what we were talking about it first when I first called him, but then he was just saying to me, he was just like, could you imagine if we lived together in New York? And I was like, okay, I was really like, this is great, this is a great thing he's saying, but I was sort of like, why are you saying this to me now? And he was just like, imagine if we lived in New York together and we lived in an apartment. He was like, I'd even try and cook for you. And I was just sat there like, this is great, like, wow, like, thanks. Um, but I made a mistake. I mentioned because of the woman he lived with, didn't know that she'd left at this time. I think, or I just found out. I can't remember. I think I thought maybe she had left. I don't know. I didn't really care or know the details. So I remember I said something like, "Oh, but what about the woman you live with?" And that's when he turned on me, and he just like being really like horrible and just being like, "What are you talking about? Like, don't talk about that," sort of thing, like snapping at me and for being nasty. And I kept saying, I can't remember word for word what he said because a lot of the time, it upset me and I don't want to think about it. But I remember I kept saying to him, "Why are you saying this to me? Literally a second ago, you were talking about me living with you." Because he'd always sort of, like I said before, he'd always gone on about me like living with him, like um as like a housekeeper kind of thing, which I mean, okay, that I always sort of took. And he's like pushed off as a joke, but he said it all the time. It wasn't. I think a joke can only be a running joke if between two people if the other person's involved, and it wasn't like that. It was very like, you know, quite sincere about some of the time when he said things like that. So I was very confused. When he was saying this, I thought it was very genuine because his tone was really like, "Oh, wouldn't it be great?" sort of thing. Like, I think we should do that. That's what he was saying, and I felt like very this was very sincere. And then suddenly he, flipped on me after I mentioned that woman, which I mean, I shouldn't have done. Because I mean, technically, it was none of my business, and I do hold my hands up to that. It was none of my business, but around this time, which I will talk about later, I sort of became more aware of her. Um, she actually made herself aware, like known to me, if that makes sense, which is what I was talking about earlier that I will refer to. So, the thing is, like, so the first that was the 1st of October, and then I remember the next day we were talking, and I think we were talking about I was saying how I was going to call the dog Nico and stuff, and I remember like some of the conversation I remember quite specifically, and then he was just going on about random crap, and I don't really remember other conversations from October that well, but I remember the one I was on about 22nd of October, where I said to him, I can't remember the context, but I was reading it yesterday. The actual I wonder it might actually be on this phone. I'm gonna pause this so I can check. I don't know if I do have it on this phone. If I do, then I'll read it out, but I'm not sure. I just forgot something completely important, really important. I had a friend who later became my boyfriend, but he became my boyfriend at the end of October. But at the start of October, we were really good friends. I became very close with him. He was almost a year younger than me, and he was with me a lot when a lot of things happened between us. As in like, and he, I feel really bad looking back because he had to see how upset I was made by Dylan. He saw it all the time. And like one time we went to like this restaurant, and this was before we were together. I think it was like the 9th of October, may have been slightly later than that, but it was around then. And Dylan randomly started messaging me and being nasty to me. And I don't know if it was on this day. I just checked it was the 12th of October, so it might not have been this day. But basically, like because of how he'd been treating me, since he'd had a go at me at the start of the month, I messaged him and I said, "Do I mean nothing to you?" And he said, "Whoa, you need to chill. I have been without power from the hurricane, and my car was broken into, other things to attend to than daily social media check ins," which was completely a lie, by the way, because I later found out that his car was not broken into at all. Like, somebody just stole, like, the car door handle of the car for some reason. He made it sound like it got taken when I spoke to him on the phone about it. And did have power. He was active. It's like he thought that I couldn't see that he was active, I was worried about the hurricane thing as well because this was during that time, and I kept saying to him, I was like, "Are you okay?" And it sounds a bit like I was being a bit neurotic, but I was doing it in his best interest. I wasn't trying to be annoying, sort of thing. Um, oh yeah, that's another thing. Is his driver's license got stolen. Um, I said, this is the lack. This just shows the lack of regard he had for me. He said, "I can't talk to everyone all the time, mate." He said, "No reason to be over emotional." And I said, "That's not what I'm saying at all. I know you can't. I would never expect that from you. It's not about when you talk to me or how often. It's about how you talk to me. Like, I don't feel like I mean anything to you." And he said, "Do a crossword puzzle if you're so bored," which is horrible. He said, "You know me enough to know that I'm not going to read all that. It's what it is, kid. Keep it up. I don't do homework." He was going on about because I said to him, I was like, "I'm upset." And I think that may have been the message when I was at the restaurant. I just remember I threw my phone and I said to the guy that I later dated, I said to him, I was like, "Can you just read it?" Because I didn't even want to know what he said. And then I did, and I was replying to him, and he ruined that day. I remember, like, it was horrible. Like, that was a really bad day for me. I just saw there's a message here of him referring to me being 16, even though I had turned 17 at this time. Just I screenshotted that to prove that he was aware of my age. Um, so so that was like some of the conversation from October. That wasn't even the conversation I was going to talk about though. I was going to talk about a conversation where I had with him. I can't remember how it started, and I was going to look for those screenshots, but I got distracted by those other things. I don't believe it was on there. I didn't have a massive look, but um, he basically I do not have on this phone though. He started the conversation with me, and because of how he was talking to me, I felt so like disrespected by him, and I was like, "Hang on, like, are you using me? Do I not mean anything to you?" And he just kept refusing to like acknowledge me like as a person. You know, it's like I wasn't real to him. He was just like, what are you talking about? He kept changing the subject, and I kept saying to him like, you used me, you know, like because you just wanted these photos from me, and like what's going on? And I wasn't bothered. It wasn't phased. Like he didn't even apologize for making me feel that way or explaining himself. He just kept trying to change the subject or like make a joke out of it. I was like, I feel used. He was just like, oh, it's better to be vintage than new. And I was just like, what is that supposed to mean? It's like no regard for the fact that he upset me. Yeah, but the thing is, he didn't deny that. Oh, he said he did say that there is no use or something. There is nothing to be used or something along those lines. And I remember thinking like, well, you did use me clearly because you don't care about me, but you wanted these photos from me. And he just a lot of the time he'd even deny that I ever even sent him them or uh, he ever even asked, which is why I went back and I screenshotted the conversation where he originally asked me because I was so angry about that like that was such a horrible thing to me that he said. I was so like, how dare he say that to me? You know, that's what I was saying before, like in my first video where he used to, or the second video maybe, he used to like make everything seem like I was crazy and like I was making these things up. He used to like proper say it to me very condescendingly, like, oh no, you've got it all wrong, like you know, it's not like that at all. And I was just baffled, like he thinks I'm that stupid. And it made me so mad. He just did things like that all the time. And it's like he thought I was that thick. Um, like one time in November, I had sent him photos, right? And they were new photos. And he then like when he opened them, he said to me, I think he messaged me very briefly about it, but on the phone I asked him to elaborate on what he meant, and he told me he thought it was funny. But basically, he told me that a guy who was doing something on his website. He doesn't have a website. He used to, but the domain ran out years ago. He doesn't have it anymore, and you cannot, as far to my knowledge. I mean, I used to do computer science. I can't imagine somebody, like an 80-year-old man, coding a website on somebody's phone because that's what he claimed this guy was doing. Very odd. And apparently, he wasn't on his phone when I sent those photos. This guy was, and this guy opened the photos and just raised his eyebrows and looked over at Dylan like, "Oh." Which makes no sense because during the time I sent these photos, I was in the middle of a conversation with Dylan. I was talking to him and he opened them. It's so I that was completely false. That to me screamed he'd opened them and then showed this guy. And I'm not going to say who this person is, but I believe I do know who this person is, and I believe they are of that age, like they are much much older. And I think that's really disgusting. And I think that he did that to brag about the fact that I sent him photos. Um, which I mean, like why? And I hate the fact that what he'd do, he'd like open the photos, right? He would replay them like several times. He'd have them, and then he'd say things to me like, "Why'd you send me them?" Like, or try and it's almost as if he thought I couldn't tell that he had done that, and sort of try and make out like he never even suggested I did that, and that he was just innocent, and because I sent them to him, he had to open them, kind of thing, which makes no sense. Um, so that was like October. November, we had like the first like good video call we had was in November, and he was. The thing I forgot to mention is that he did sing to me quite a bit. The first song he ever sang to me was it was a Beatles song that's quite like a love song. And then he also sang one of his own songs to me on that day when he was in. This was when he was in LA. He sang that the first time, but if he ever video called me, and then he also sang another song to me that he continued to sing to me all the time. It was like kind of like I guess the song he sang to me a lot. And probably God knows how many other people, to be honest. But that was something he did often. I remember this video call in November, and I remember during this time he was really high, and I remember saying to him, he was playing me a song, and I said to him, "What song is it?" Like I said, "What is it?" And he held up his guitar and he said, "It's from 1956. Do you like it?" Rather than answering question, because that was how off his head he was. He didn't even like think I was asking about the song. He wasn't even doing it in a jokey way because like I said, he has a very dry sense of humor. He meant it. He genuinely thought that's why I was asking him, which is weird, but you know, he did a lot of stuff like that. It was just quite hard to have a normal conversation with him. I had started dating this guy at the time. I dated him started dating him just before my birthday. And my birthday is an interesting thing because I asked him to sing to me on my birthday, and he was like, "Yeah, okay," and he never did. I did manage to get in contact with him on my birthday though, and he never said happy birthday to me. I was saying to him, I was just like, "It's my birthday. Do you care?" And he just no regard for it. And it didn't. I had no feelings towards the fact that it was my birthday, and I was trying to tell him, even though he knew, like I said, that's what I was saying before, he always knew when my birthday was as well. It's not like, oh, he could have said he forgot, because I know that he didn't. Um, so that was like November. It was just a very up and down time. Same with October, because like I said, he was so fickle with me during those 2 months. I really didn't know, and I remember I was starting to try and pull myself away towards the end of November because it was upsetting my boyfriend at the time, and I felt bad about that, and he saw how much Dylan was hurting me, and I used to, like, get really upset. And people, that was like, I had so much support from people saying to me like get rid of him, and I lost so many people from them telling me to get rid of him and me refusing to, because I thought that he was what was best for me, and he wasn't at all, but I really wanted to believe that he was. And it's like, I knew, the thing is, I used to say to people like, he's doing these horrible things, and I people were just saying to me like, we support you if you want to get rid of him and stuff. And it's quite sad, like, looking back, that I didn't try harder, I guess. But he had such a strong hold over me, even though I knew how horrible he was to me. I used to cry all the time because of him, like constantly, like in tears, like wondering what I did wrong. A lot of the time, I just say to him, I'm just like, I'm so sorry, I don't know what I've done. And he just didn't care. Like I said before, he was saying earlier, stop being so overly emotional. Even though he'd just been really horrible to me, it's just like I was confused. I was like, what? Do you hate me or not? Um, I remember we were talking like at the start of December, but I honestly, I think around that time, like late November and December, I hardly messaged him because I was spending a lot of time with my boyfriend, and I wanted to. It was kind of, I was trying to get away from him, but it was like, I felt bad. I almost felt like, this sounds so weird. And I remember I went out on the 20th, no, 20, yeah, the 21st of October. I remember, and I went with my friend to this pub, and like this guy was like flirting with me, and I remember feeling so guilty afterwards that I felt like I cheated on Dylan. This is before I got into a relationship with my boyfriend. I felt like I was cheating on him, which is so weird because I wasn't with him. But that's how he made me feel. He made me feel like, he was the only man that mattered to me, and so I felt so guilty about that. I remember being really upset, and when I came home, I was shivering, and I laid outside on the floor on the concrete like all night, and I just felt so guilty. Um, and also another thing, he was very contradictory. He used to tell me to drink all the time. He used to be like, "Oh yeah, you should just." He even said this to me not long ago, quite recently. He says to me like, "You know anything else better to do? You should just drink like I do." And then if I ever did drink, he'd be like, "Oh, that's really bad for you. Why are you doing that?" And like have a go at me as if to say like he never said that. He also suggested I started smoking as well quite a bit. He used to go on about that. And then the other thing he said to me in October, he said, "You shouldn't judge me for doing heroin unless you try it yourself." um because when he told me about it, and when he told me, we was talking about how he does heroin to me. I think he may have mentioned it before then, but when he like was properly talking to me about it, I was like, oh, that sounds bad to me. And he was just like, well, you can't judge me unless you do it yourself. um so that's like an encouragement of encouraging me to do drugs. So December was a weird time. I was trying to, oh, I missed out something actually. I think it happened in October, I can't remember. At college, we were doing this like performing thing, and you had to just like show something, like a skill, and I chose to do singing, and I cannot sing to save my life. I really can't. I never ever done singing before. I'm good at acting, but I never ever sang in front of anybody before. I don't even like sing in front of my parents. That's how much I don't sing. And I tried to, and like I just like sort of broke down, and immediately afterwards I was just crying so much because I just kept thinking about Dylan the entire time, and I was so worried at that time I'd upset him, because he was so snappy with me in it. But then he'd just be like, if I actually spoke to him, he'd be fine, and he'd just be like laughing with me. But then in messages, he'd be so snappy, and I just kept saying like, "What have I done wrong?" all the time, and I was so upset, and I felt it was just such a horrible time in my life. But I'm going to talk about the rest, the end of December and January, etc., in the next video. So thank you for watching. If you've watched this video, this one has been quite short, so I hope you have managed to watch it. This is like giving more context to some more details of things he said to me.